What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Take Two, the show where we talk about films, TV, and everything in between. I'm your host, Michael D. Smith. Today we have a very awesome episode in store for you. Before we get started, two quick disclaimers. First, everything that is said on this show is just our opinions of said cinema, and it should be treated just as that. Second, if you're worried about spoilers, we do go very in-depth, and this is your spoiler warning. Now that we have that out of the way, let's meet our guest for today. Our guest is Alec Palumbo. Alec is a freshman at Montclair State University with a filmmaking major. He's an up-and-coming writer and director as well. He's made various short films. His YouTube channel will be in the description of this video. So thanks for being here, Alec.
Thanks for having me, yo.
Yeah. So all right, let's just get started with this because we have. Both of us share the exact same feeling towards these two movies that we have today.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. The first we're going to talk about is The Mule. Some quick facts about The Mule. It was directed by Clint Eastwood, and it was written by Nick Schenk. It came out on December 14th, 2018. It had a $50 million budget with a $166.7 million cumulative box office. It stars Clint Eastwood, Bradley Cooper, Michael Pena, and Lawrence Fishburne, to name a few. On Rotten Tomatoes, it received a 70% by critics and a 68% by fans. So now that we have that out of the way, tell us about what you thought about The Mule.
Oh, well, first of all, I'm a big fan of Clint Eastwood's work. Like Mystic River, Million Dollar Baby especially, Gran Torino, all of his previous films he's directed, and even the ones he starred in as well, which, you know, Unforgiven amongst the others I mentioned. I think he's, like, super talented. And the fact that Bradley Cooper's in this movie, who's also in the other movie we're about to talk about, I was excited to see what else he's going to do with him because they're both very talented and obviously know how to act and whatnot.
Right.
So I actually did see this movie, I think I saw one trailer, didn't even look at what the ratings are, which is rare for me. I always check Rotten Tomatoes or see something or get word of mouth at least. I went in completely blind, and I just kind of relied that Clint Eastwood was going to entertain at least, and sadly, I was confused as hell. Like, I just was it was a very lacklusterly made film, in my opinion. I saw it with a friend, and we were both, as soon as the credits rolled, verbatim, he turns to me and goes, I think we missed something. Like, literally. And I was like, and it was either seeing that or Green Book. And, like, from what I hear,
yeah,
I was like, I'm like, yo.
Did you end up seeing Green Book?
I haven't even seen it yet. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I watched it on a whim because I went home one weekend, and it was like a Thursday night, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go see Green Book because I'm trying to watch the films that are getting nominated, but there's so many of them.
Yeah, it was
and I don't have the access to do it. So this year I saw the most. I only didn't see two films, and that was The Favorite and Roma. I saw every other film that was nominated. And Green Book was very, very well done. But yeah, so go ahead.
Anyway, but yeah, so The Mule, so if can I just like start breaking into it? And stuff
yeah,
like that?
Go through it.
Word.
And if you want to just say your general stuff, and then we'll go more specific,
Absolutely.
and then so that way I can say
All right.
my perspective.
All right, cool. All right, so my general thought is I think the three big things I took away from the movie that I could say in like 10 seconds is that I think it's time for Clint Eastwood to maybe start recasting other people besides himself in movies. Mm-hmm. He's a legend. He's an icon. I respect him as much as I respect Spielberg or anybody else. I think he's at that level of genius. I just think when you're 88 years old and you put yourself in the director's spot and the actor's spot in a movie at this caliber, it's tough. And I think he kind of underestimated that. Secondly, I think this movie, one of the critics, the only notion I got before I saw the movie is my father said, just so you know, like the review in the paper, the critic was saying it's racist. Like it's racist, it's sexist. It's just like a very bigoted movie. And I was like, that's unlike something that he would make. Like he's Mr. America. Like,
right.
American Sniper, like all the movies, Flags of Our Fathers and stuff like that. He's made some really patriotic movies. So when I hear that he's making a movie that's bigoted, I was like, all right, I'll be the judge of that. And not gonna lie, the first line of the film, I was like, wow, like it was like it deals with Mexican cartel.
Yeah,
you remember the first line of the movie? I have it memorized, but if you
yeah, no, go ahead. I don't remember.
He's talking to like this guy named Jose, and he's like, he's got like a beat up like Cadillac or something. He's like, "Hey Jose, like what's with the taco wagon? Like you want to be deported or something?" And I was like,
Right.
first line, I was like, "All right, wow, like this is already like that's not that bad." But like if it's like a comedy or if it's like you're making light of it, but like this movie continually just like tested the boundaries of like, all right, this is like a joke, and then it's like, okay, this is a distraction from the story.
Especially, it's interesting that you brought that line up, and I have stuff on that as well. But because the movie, he didn't write the movie, so and as you can in this instance blame completely Nick Schenk because, as we said before, he's done a lot of great films or written a lot of great films. But when you look at Clint Eastwood, you must have assumed that if it's a Clint Eastwood movie, he might have another writer, but that's just so that he doesn't actually have to write it. Yeah. He probably had everything he thought planned out. So the whole idea of the character being the way he was, he probably was like, "Oh yeah, can we make sure we have this in?" So it's interesting. I don't know.
I think his personality is all over this film. Like you can see it, and his character rants back to technology. His character is very Republican as Clint Eastwood is, and that's perfectly fine to put in a movie. It's just like it was blurring the line between like, is this a character and is this Clint Eastwood? Which leads me to my third problem with this movie is that I didn't know it was a true story, and if you didn't tell me that after seeing the movie, I've been like, that's clearly was not true because it was so unrealistic and just kind of like it was kind of just like I don't even know how to explain it. Just like stuff didn't add up. Like for example, the herald in the story. A herald is like somebody like he puts the protagonist on the mission, so it's like you have to do this, and then that's what drives the story.
Right.
The herald.
An example is like in Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship.
Yeah.
Gandalf, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Just like go on this mission, and then like the audience and the character are like, okay, so now they're doing that. If it's a true story, and I did a little research because I had to write a paper on the Mule, it was a guy that was at Clint Eastwood's character named Earl. He went to his granddaughter's wedding party. It was like a backyard barbecue, whatever.
Right.
Got into an argument, leaves. Somebody that was at the party walks over and says, "Hey, I hear you need a job." And then he's like, "Yeah, I do need a job." He gives him like a business card or something, and he's like, "Go to the location, and we'll have a job for you." And apparently, that's how he starts, transporting drugs in the movie. When I was like, that makes no sense. Like, how is a dude in a cartel like miraculously at his granddaughter's wedding, and then what's even more amazing is that character never returns in the movie. Like he sets him on this mission and he disappears. Two other characters also disappear, like the hitman in the movie.
Right.
We'll get into that later, but like I don't know why the screenplay was almost like they would introduce a storyline and it was almost as if it's a deleted scene, or the screenwriters were just like, we don't need to like full circle that story, like it's just gonna end. And so that's why when the credits rolled up, so many unfinished thoughts were introduced. I was like, why do you have this scene? Why do you have this scene? And why do you have like all these scenes? And it started to really pile up, like so that was my biggest problem, was that the end result was so like jumbled together. I was like, I don't even know where to pick up the pieces. Right. So we could get more into that. I do like the writer of this film also wrote Gran Torino, which is the exact opposite in my opinion. Like it's a movie that stars and directed by Eastwood. It's pretty much like around the same time frame. And Gran Torino is not a true story, but The Mule is based on true events.
And I think it's a book as well. I don't know who wrote it.
I think
it's based off. I don't know if it's called The Mule. I think it's called. I don't know. I saw somewhere when I was doing research that it said it was based off a book, which was also surprising to me. But
yeah, because it didn't really offer much. Like there's not really. Is there an action scene? Is there an action scene in this movie?
If you count, no.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe which is something I'll bring up as well. The whole cartel guy getting shot.
Yes,
that's really the only action in the movie. Everything
and it's not even an act. It's just like a dude gets shot in the. Anyways, let's talk about the cast in this movie.
Right.
Because that's like also like probably your biggest gripe that when we discussed this previously, you mentioned that the acting was so subpar for the cast that they had. So we had Bradley Cooper, Michael Pena, Lawrence Fishburne, Andy Garcia. I think Clint Eastwood's real life daughter plays his daughter in the movies, while Allison Eastwood, and I think that's everybody I can name that's in the film that's notable.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was, but like everybody seemed unmotivated to the point where it's kind of just like cookie cutter characters.
Well, it's interesting because you say that, because when I was doing research about this today, I told you I stumbled upon a behind the scenes video. I didn't even search it up. I searched up the Mule scene compilation so I could just get some remember some of the scenes, and it popped up. So I was like, all right, I'll watch this. And in the video, it basically was interviews of all of the characters, and all of them said, well, Bradley Cooper's was the most interesting, because Bradley Cooper said when this was probably filmed after he did A Star Is Born.
Yeah.
I would bet. So in the interview, he said that Clint Eastwood just called him, kind of like how you said, oh, you want to do this?
Yeah.
He called him and basically just said, hey, I'm doing this movie. Do you want to be a part of it? And he said, yeah, I don't even know what the character is. I'll do it, which is kind of, if you get the sense of his acting, it's pretty obvious. But what's also interesting is what I learned is that Clint Eastwood is a very different director in the aspect that he doesn't like rehearsals. So a lot of the actors, including his daughter, were in the interview and said that if you ever said as an actor to Clint, oh, I'm thinking this, or I'm thinking of this, or we should maybe try this, he would say, no, don't think. Just do it. So his mindset was, let's not rehearse and let's not practice it like crazy. Let's just, as they said, be in the moment and just act it out. So that might have been a pretty big problem of it. I also think it was the writing. But I also think it's the direction. You can't blame just the actors, because I'm sure I don't know her name or the actress, but the lady who played his wife, I mean, like, it just was, for me, it was just pathetic. It was just really poor acting. Yeah. And especially his niece or granddaughter,
yeah.
The little, like, yeah. There was a moment in the film where I literally laughed out loud. I giggled.
It was a rough take.
Because she was on the phone with him, and I think he was in the middle of one of his jobs, and then she was like, oh, I need you to like show up to this thing or whatever, and he was like, I can't, like, oh, I can't, I'm in the thing. And then she was like, oh, you're just so mean, and I literally, I was like, is that really what you wanted, Clint? Like, is that where you're going with this? And I just was amazed by it. And let me get into what I mainly thought of the film.
Absolutely.
And then we can break down the big problems with this film. So I thoroughly disliked this movie.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say disliked instead of hate is because I hate the word hate. I usually don't say that much, because whether you're talking about a person, an actor, a film, whatever, it's just so deliberately mean and unnecessary, Yeah. And if you say you hate a film, that means start to finish nothing you liked. But when you say you disliked it, it's a little less, intense. So I didn't like this film that much at all. Same thing for you. You said you did see the trailer, correct?
I saw like a teaser. I didn't watch like the full trailer. I like barely knew what the story was about. I literally went in on a whim.
Right. So I think for me, when I watched it over our winter break, and I had seen the trailer in a movie theater beforehand, and the trailer, in my opinion, looked great. I thought it looked really cool, especially the sequence where he, the first time he checks and actually notices that it's drugs he's transporting, and then the cop shows up behind him and he's like, hey, what are you doing there, mister? And it's like, oh no. And there's the dog. I saw that, and I saw the whole trailer, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a really interesting movie. I mean, there's Clint Eastwood. He's done great films. I mean, recently I just watched American Sniper. I loved it.
Phenomenal.
It's a great movie. Great Bradley Cooper movie as well.
Yeah.
And so I saw that, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a really, really good movie. I got to see this. And then I obviously wasn't able to for a little while. I saw it, and I also didn't go in with the ratings. And I told my friend, Zach Miller, who will be on the show eventually, that it felt like we could have made this movie.
Yeah.
The budget, as I said, was $50 million, and I honestly think that half of that went to Bradley Cooper just so he could do the movie. Because other than the giant helicopter shots and tracking shots of the truck and all the big production thing, we could have made this movie for like $2,000.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, the acting would probably be better. And from that perspective, I say, you know, there's a difference between being able to make a film that, from a filmmaking standpoint, is easy to produce money-wise. That's different.
Yeah.
But if you say story-wise, we could make this, that's a problem. Because if you're telling a story that's so blatantly simple and easy to produce, that means that it's not a good story. I think that this could have been a much better film if they had approached it differently. As I said, my main problems were the acting, the pacing of the movie, the lack of music in the movie. I felt like a lot of the moments were just so long and boring, and I didn't know what was going on.
A lot of long takes.
I honestly thought like half of the movie was just shots of him in a truck. It felt like a Ford commercial because half of the shots were just zoom, truck going by in a field, and then him in the car like singing and tapping on his like
eating
wheel.
an ice cream cone at one point.
Yeah, and
don't recommend if you're almost 90 years old, by the way, or if you're just driving regularly.
I don't recommend.
Don't eat. SNL did a little part. They're like he's eating an ice cream cone, and like the audience like this might be the only action scene we have. It's like he might crash because like he's like unwrapping it, and it's like no. Like,
SNL did a funny thing as well on the Mule. I think it was Pete Davidson and maybe Seth Meyers.
John Mulaney.
Oh, John Mulaney, right.
Yeah.
And I forget what they said about it, but it was. I think you told me to watch it.
It's a superhero film for old people.
Right.
That's they call it the Mule. They're like because like Clint Eastwood. I actually finished your point, but they were just saying it's a superhero movie for the old people. Basically.
Right. So those were my main problems. It felt like kind of your point before that it's a ridiculous story, but it's even more ridiculous that it actually happened. And at that point, then we're talking about like real life, and that's a different discussion. But
I know in True Story, it's literally just Earl. I forget. I think his last name is like Gray or something. Earl Stone. It's actually Earl Stone.
Yeah, that's it.
He needed money because his flower business went out of business because the internet, so you could just buy flowers online.
Right.
He was his whole business like shipping it to you and whatnot, and so he decided to make extra money by running drugs for the cartel, and they didn't look twice because it's an old white dude. So when he got captured, that's the crux of the story. They probably threw in Bradley Cooper's character as a subplot, even though I'm sure an FBI agent did have to find out who he was. But in the movie, they throw in some far-fetched subplots, such as like they throw a party for Earl, which is probably like the most cringeworthy 10 minutes of the film.
Right.
Do you want to talk about the party scene now?
Yeah. So for the main thing about Bradley Cooper and Clint Eastwood's performance for me, it felt very stale from very professional, seasoned actors like they were. And that's very rare that happens because a majority of the time, actors usually improve as they go on. And obviously Bradley Cooper isn't 90 years old or 88, whatever he is. But I felt like I haven't seen many Clint Eastwood films where he's acted, but I feel like in the films I have, he's a good actor, and he's kind of like what you said. He's definitely America's like guy. And with Bradley Cooper as well, he's a really big up and coming actor and now director as well. So it was really surprising that none of them at one point, even Bradley, like I know Clint Eastwood, he said in an interview like I love Clint Eastwood, he's a great director, he's a nice guy, but I can't believe that he didn't say at one point, guys, can we do anything with this? Like, can we change this up? Do you want anything more? Like, it just boggles me that nobody said anything. Even a producer, they put $50 million in this thing. And I mean, I know it's Clint Eastwood, so if he says he wants a movie made, his company's like, yep, let's do it.
I'm all positive.
But, and then also as well, like you said, it's a very racist and sexist film.
I think that we should probably get into that before we like dissect like the party.
Yeah. So
there are bigger fish to fry. Yeah, absolutely.
the two, other than the cartel racism, there's the scene with the bikers.
Yes,
as well as the scene where the family's car breaks down.
Yeah, that was definitely the worst of it. That was almost the most intense scene in the movie because I thought people would be so offended they were gonna walk out. But anyways, just before we get into the bigotry problems in the film, what I was saying before is that like Bradley Cooper, who's one of my favorite actors,
I would agree as well.
He was maybe up and coming 10 years ago. To me, he's an A-lister now.
Yeah.
So he just like, I think A Star Is Born got nominated for an Oscar. It got all these accolades. I saw the film; it's really good. I think he was phenomenal in it. I literally think, like you said in the interview, he got the call, and Clint Eastwood was like, "You're playing a DEA agent. We're making a movie, and it's gonna be great." And he was just like, "I'm in." Boom.
Yeah.
And then like that's what we got. You know,
I think that is exactly what happened.
It's in unfamiliar territory.
Yeah.
But as far as the problems, filmmaking and craft aside, the human problems in this movie are much bigger, because that's really why I dislike it as much as I did, because I not only felt just like scammed as like an audience member, but I was just like, people's like feelings could get hurt, like people could be getting insulted.
I forget specifically what he said. The biker scene didn't strike me as much, only because the people that he called the word that he did, they kind of like accepted it, and they were like, "Oh,
they
yeah."
brushed it off.
Yeah, so I felt like, oh, okay, that's more of a
it
joke.
just felt unnecessary.
It was completely like, you could have written that out, and nothing would have changed about the character or anything. And then with the car scene,
do we want to introduce what happened?
Yeah, so Clint Eastwood was driving down the road, and he sees this car broke down in the middle of nowhere, and so he pulls over.
He's also being tailed by 2 cartel hitmen.
Right.
Just because to me, I thought, okay, it's tension. Like, these 2 hitmen are following him. They're making sure he's trying to do a good job. And he's pulling over, being a nice guy and saying, oh, I got to help out this family they have a flat tire. And so now I'm thinking, okay, they might have to do something because in the middle of the highway. And so I'm like, this is it's a good setup. Like, it's a very good setup. It's the first tense moment, probably 45 minutes into the movie. And this is what happens. So you can say what happens now.
Right, so what's surprising to me is, what the best way to say this is, it didn't seem like a joke, which I think if it came off as a joke, it would be less offensive. But the way, and there's a difference between an offensive character or an offensive plot or something, whatever, and like acknowledging it. But when it just comes out of nowhere and it's not previously set up to be like that, it becomes very jarring, and it just seems wrong and unnecessary. I think you probably got the same reaction from that.
I was surprised. I was like, well, first of all, we should probably say what happened in the scene.
Right, you explain it.
It was, so he goes up to the family. The cartel people are watching from the distance. So the main focus of the scene was like the fact that the cartel was looking at him help this family, and he's got drugs in the car, so he shouldn't be doing this. And then cut to Clint Eastwood and his family. It's African American family, and so he's fixing their car. And he's like, of course, like he opens up, but like the guy's trying to pull up something on his phone. He's like, technology's no good out here. And it's like, okay, we get it. And then he goes, oh, I think the line verbatim is, because I had to write about this in the paper, and so I'm trying to get it like word for word. He's like, I feel so good to help out you Negro people.
Right.
And so then the characters show offense to it, and they say, like, hey, you could just call us black people or just regular people. They're like, people is fine. And then I don't want to, everybody probably saw a different look if you asked 100 people, but then I saw Clint Eastwood his character kind of showed like, almost like an insulted or like a kind of like a salty look. He was like, oh, like, okay. And then no more than 10 seconds later, the scene ended. And I was like, what did we just, like, why was that included? It felt like the most unnecessary, like kind of racist thing you could put in a movie at a moment where they could have developed the story and the character, because a lot of things were going on, so that's why I was really surprised that happened. But that ended up being the tip of the iceberg, honestly.
Right, yeah, and it's funny too, because I don't know what the best way to say this is, but it just like, I don't know. It just annoys me that a man of that stature and the amount of people that read that script didn't say anything about it.
Yeah, I'm surprised that got through the test screening and nobody in the audience was like, hey.
Nobody was like,
this is a little much. Maybe I'm just a softie, but like I'm clearly not in the minority that like this is something you shouldn't be saying, because I know Clint Eastwood has a rep. He's got his own. He's got juice. Like, everybody knows he's a household name. People know he's not a crazy dude, so then his character says something like that, and it's a movie, like, you gotta blur the line, but at the same time, somebody like us makes a short film, we gotta make sure we're being respectful, and you put humans in front of the audience. You know what I'm saying?
No, I totally agree.
Also, and like you were saying before about like the $50 million and like we could have made this movie, I would say it's less worded like that, but because I'm sure this movie, it takes a lot of talent, a lot of talented crew, a lot of production value, but just going on that point, I think it's a movie that didn't have production value besides that they need to like shut down a highway, and like without the stars surrounding the film, I think it was like, where did the money go to? You know, it was like a very subtle Hollywood like movie released during Oscar season. You know.
I totally agree. And, you know, another thing, too, that I think we've talked about as well, this will be our last 2 points on this film. So the first one is, for me, my biggest problem next to the acting and the writing and all that is there was no climax.
There was not.
There was nothing.
Off screen. I think that's my note. It's literally off screen.
It is, yeah. I think we've also talked about this before, that a preferred thing, and it's so funny that we as college students can make this up, yet we're not getting paid for it, even though it's way better than what happened.
Yes.
If like the climax should have been, so basically, if you haven't seen the film, Earl Stone is driving in a truck, and Bradley Cooper and the police, or the DEA, is trying to track down the truck. So they get the tip, it's a black truck or white truck, whatever it is. And so they put up a bunch of different cars that are looking and pulling over trucks and trying to figure out who it is.
Also, another racist moment happened between. We're not going to get into that, but just if you see it, you'll know what it is.
Right,
like,
right.
They pull over a Hispanic driver, something ensues, and then it's like another head-scratching moment. But continue.
Yeah. So, and then eventually there's a helicopter. They find the truck. They're driving behind him. They find him. Earl's like covered in blood from a previous encounter with a cartel gentleman. And yeah, and then basically he gets arrested. Bradley Cooper sees him. He realizes, oh my God, this is the guy from the diner that we previously, like they met each other at a diner without knowing that they were
completely ripped off Heat. If
right.
you've ever seen Heat, they literally like, it was almost like, come on, like it's not even, they say, but also a lot of movies have done this. The villain and the protagonist meet not knowing that they're who they think they are.
Right.
They did that kind of lacklusterly, and then it was like that big reveal didn't even work for me because it was like I knew they were going to throw something like that in.
Right.
Also, when they were on the highway, the last scene, before Earl was driving on the highway, he was held at gunpoint by 2 cartel hitmen.
Right.
And so they had 2 guns on him, and he was just kind of standing there, 88-year-old dude. And then he's all bloody in the highway, and we're like, what happened? And after he gets arrested,
because he's 90, he's not
almost
gonna.
90s
he's not gonna. It's all right. It's
yeah.
okay.
He's
He's not gonna. Like, he's not Batman. Like,
yeah.
he can't. But with that scene, basically he gets arrested. They have a little interaction where they're like, "Oh my God, it's you," and then he gets put in a truck, and you're like, "All right, Earl," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm good." Which, by the way, no DEA agent, regardless of if you met them, the person would be so sympathetic towards the person who just has been trafficking over millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Well, because they met at the diner, and I think they exchanged names.
Yeah.
But so, and I'm pretty sure, and it ends in the courtroom.
In a courtroom
and
where
he
gets charged for killing the 2.
Right.
They say like cartel goons or something like that. And so 2 things jumped out to me is that like the DEA thinks they've accomplished their job in the film by just arresting the driver. And second of all, I don't think anybody in the audience bought that Earl could have physically killed
done anything to this.
The 2 the jacked guys at him at gunpoint. It was almost like, if you're gonna show him survive, show us that. That's gonna be the climax of the movie, which would probably be lackluster. Well, as is.
My climax actually would have been different. I would have. I honestly.
The mansion thing, yeah.
Yeah, I would have preferred. Have you seen the movie Sicario?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that movie.
One of my favorite movies.
It's Denis Villeneuve.
Yep.
Yeah, he's
Benicio del Toro.
Yeah,
Josh Brolin.
Wonderful
Emily
movie.
Blunt.
And in that movie, the climax, one of the pieces of the climax is when they raid a cartel mansion.
Yeah.
Not the team, just Benicio del Toro, but
the one-man army in that movie.
Right. But,
he's a badass.
So what would have been way better in this movie is if they arrested him, they cut to one of those rooms where there's like a one-way glass and it's on a table and he's handcuffed, and Bradley Cooper walks in and he says, "Listen, Earl, sorry I had to do this, but you're breaking the law." And Earl's like, "No, it's all right, I understand." And then he's like, "But you can amend yourself. Tell us where the cartel mansion is." And then he tells him,
and then
he busts in, and it's a huge action shootout sequence. And then whoever was the one that killed the cartel leader, which was just completely unjustified and would never happen.
Yeah.
Whoever ended up killing him,
Gets killed.
Earl would have maybe been there and had a good moment, been like, "Oh, hey, I'm on top now," or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, something.
It would have been some what we call, what's it? It's not fan service. It's
Right.
like we sat through almost 100 minutes of build up, and in the end, we got our protagonist. And even though it's a true story, our protagonist was thrown in jail. If you're gonna stretch the boundaries of like truth and what actually happened in the film as far as they did, you may as well throw in an action scene, because the cartel in this movie gets away. They're almost unacknowledged. Like after he gets arrested, they don't have a scene.
Yeah.
Like they don't even like, oh, Earl got arrested. There's no. It's almost as if they didn't exist. So when Andy Garcia, who is the original antagonist in the film, gets killed by one of his own, not only did it seem far-fetched, but it was just like...
It was out of nowhere, too.
The story just ended. Yeah, they never set that up. The party scene, he talks to another hitman. He gets suspicious of Earl. He disappears with no explanation. And so the last line I'll say about this movie is that you're just going to be confused, or you're just going to be focusing on the stuff that is entertaining. Thus, you'll be like, okay, there were some enjoyable parts, but you're not. There's not gonna be a full puzzle at the end. There's gonna be a few pieces that are gonna be missing, and actually a lot of pieces are missing.
Yes, I would totally agree. And my last point on this movie as well is that something we've both talked about before that I'm sure you can agree on, is that if you cast somebody like Lawrence Fishburne, who is an amazing actor,
yeah, absolutely,
you should use him to the benefit of the story.
Yeah,
Lawrence Fishburne's character, the entire movie, was simply there to just relay information. He's probably in like maybe 6 scenes, and in each scene, it's the equivalent of him in his office. Bradley Cooper and Michael Pena walk into the office, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on? Where's this cartel driver?" And he's like, "Listen, sir, we're getting our thing done. We have a plan." He's like, "All right, get it done by next week. Sounds good." They
and
leave.
then you see that
That's
4 more times.
And then the last scene, he says, Bradley Cooper says, "Listen, sir, we're so close. We're going to get him." He's like, No, there's no more money in the budget. And he's like, "Please, sir, just give me 2 more days." He's like, "All right, fine. Get it done in 2 days." That's it. You don't need him. Honestly, if they needed that in the film, which they might have, I don't know the alternative around that, other than making him something else.
Yeah.
They could have just had him on a phone and casted nobody. Just had his boss on the phone and maybe have more interaction between Michael Pena and Bradley Cooper. Be like, "What'd he say?" Like, "Oh, he says we only have 2 days." Like, that would have been better. That would have been less money probably, but also like just it would have made more sense for the movie. So that's The Mule. I guess, I would never say I don't recommend anybody watch this. I think you should watch this movie just to compare it to other Clint Eastwood movies to see
people
maybe a
liked
decline.
It.
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot of people liked
Rotten
it.
Tomatoes, and I've talked to a few people like the 3 friends I know have seen it. The one that I was with has the same opinion.
I thought you were going to say the 3 friends I have. I thought
I'm gonna lose now. My self-esteem just got so lowered after now. But
you watched
no,
The Mule, you're already a loser. So
yeah,
go ahead.
everybody in the audience is a loser for what? No, I'm kidding. But no, so my friend Joe, who I saw with, was like, "Yo, like that was terrible." Then my other friend who recommended it, that was like the only reason. He was like, "I saw it, I liked it." I sent him a text 10 minutes after. I was like, "You like what is good with that? Like, why did you like?" I was basically interrogating him. I'm like, "Break down for me." And then I mentioned some other stuff, and all in all, skip it. Watch Mystic River. Watch $1 Million Baby. Watch a movie
Sniper,
that literally there's. I feel bad that I have to like strongly dislike a film by people that I respect so much in the industry and that I've enjoyed their movies for so long. That's why I was so caught off guard when it was as badly received as I thought it was. Especially since people liked it. I was like, it's a shame that I'm in the minority and I hate it this much.
Right. All right. Yeah, so that's The Mule. Now we're going to get on to our next film and our last film. The next film is called The Place Beyond the Pines. Some quick facts about it. It was written and directed by Derek, I believe it's Cian France, and it was also written by 2 others. It came out on March 29th in 2013. As I said before, I'm a huge music buff in film, and the music is composed by Mike Patton. It had a $15 million budget. And in the box office, it made $47 million. It stars, and there's a long cast list, but it has a huge, very talented cast, and the acting is good. It stars Ryan Gosling, Bradley Cooper, Ava Mendes, Mahershala Ali, Ben Mendelsohn, Ray Liotta, and Dane DeHaan, to name a few. There are others in there as well. This is shocking that I found. So the Mule got 70% by critics, right? And only 2% less by fans. Place Beyond the Pines got 79% by critics, so only 9% better than the Mule by critics, and 75 by fans. I think that that's very startling. I believe that the Mule should be at least 60% by critics, and Place Beyond the Pines should at least be...
I was thinking more single digits for Mule, but yeah.
Yeah. But you got to be reasonable. It's clean.
Yeah, I know.
And then for critics, for Place Beyond the Pines, I believe it should have gotten at least an 85. Maybe honestly, even a 90.
Yeah. I don't even pay attention to what... If I like a movie, I don't even correlate what critics think of it. I know Roger Ebert gave it 4 out of 4.
Right.
God rest his soul. And I think a lot of people do like it. But I'm going to quote the director of this film because I've really watched some of his behind the scenes and kind of picked his brain. Because DP30 does great interviews with the director, and he's a genius. And he said, when I make a movie, I think like Burger King. It's like you can't have it your way. It's not like Burger King. You can't like make a burger that everybody will like, you know?
That's true. Yeah.
So that's
great, yeah.
the idea he has. He's like, so in this film, it's very different, very original than any other movie. That's why it's actually my favorite movie of all time. So that's why it's nice to go. It's nice segue to go from something that you don't like, and it's like, okay, now let me talk about my favorite movie.
Trying to end on a positive note.
Yeah, exactly.
So I loved this movie. So as you said, it's your favorite movie of all time, and you kept raving about this movie. And something I've been doing for the past 8 weeks, going on 9, is watching a movie a day. And I've counted. I've watched 57 movies so far.
Holy cow!
It's a lot, but it's so much fun. I'm probably gonna go to 100, which will be towards the end of April. And I'm really, really excited to finish because I won't have to go to bed at 1 a.m. every night because I don't have any free time during the day. But what it's allowed me to do is watch so many classic movies that I, as a filmmaking major, should watch and haven't watched, but also films that have come out recently within the past decade that I haven't been able to see because I'm sure it might have been similar with you.
Yeah.
If your mom or dad didn't like a movie or thought, I don't want to see that, you didn't see the movie. But now that we can drive, now that we have more money because we work, we can go see what we want. So now I'm seeing movies regularly as they come out in theaters, which everybody should do.
Yeah.
Watch movies in theaters. So I love this movie. You recommended it to me. I didn't know what to expect at all. I watched it not knowing literally anything about it. I had seen one scene from it, and it was the bike scene with the ice cream, which that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Absolutely. It's like they're not even filming. It's like there's not even
It's just
cameras.
real life. It's just, and it's even funnier now that Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes are married.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they got, so this movie came out in 2013, and they got married in 2014. So pretty much as they were filming this, they, I think, met, or maybe before that, I'm not sure. But they've been married. I think they might have a kid or something. So it's pretty cool. I thought the cast overall and the acting was phenomenal.
All around.
I think that there's really there's no single performance in this movie that I have strife with. I think it's all just very well. I think also the writing is some of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare in a film like this that only has $15 million. It's honestly, I'm not going to lie, it's shocking this movie got made. Because when you think about it, this movie has 3 protagonist shifts.
Yeah.
And not only is that something that, like, really, maybe it's been done, but on a commercial level like this, it's very rare that that's been done before and worked and has been received well. But it worked, and it worked beautifully. Like, I never was confused. I never was lost. I never was like, wait, what's going on? Like, it was all very clear. It was all very laid out well enough, but also kept you on your feet. That this is something that is very different between the two films, The Mule and Place Beyond the Pines, is that this film has so much tension and suspense, specifically when before Luke gets killed, and also the whole build up to find out that Luke's son was hanging out with Avery's son, played by Bradley Cooper. That every single reveal in this movie, you're like, oh man, oh man, oh my god, like, it's just like, it's crazy. And not only that, it's a beautifully made film just from a standpoint of visuals. And for me, talking about the music again, the music I thought it was so perfect fitting for this film. And it's sometimes, most music is just classical music, and it's like Marvel movies. There's no memorable music from those. But with this, I can't hum you the tune right now. Obviously, it's not memorable.
The Ennio Morricone.
It's just so ethereal and so, like, lightweight and just gorgeous. And I don't know, especially the ending scene where the bike shot with the shot of the bike driving away and you just hear the music, and I'm just like, that was just what an ending. Like, great job. Like, I cannot rave about this movie enough, and obviously we're going to have to stick in the time boundaries, but and yeah, like I said, the story is so complex, and it's really, really astounding that it got made, and I wish has Derek C. France, has he made any bigger movies like this, or is he kind of stuck more independent films?
He followed this up with The Light Between Oceans with Michael Fassbender and I believe Rachel Weisz, and there's another actress. But I did not even get to see that. I had seen his previous movie, Blue Valentine, which is also really well done, also starring Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams.
Okay.
Spielberg said it was his favorite movie of that year, and I believe that was 2010. So when Spielberg says
that's something.
Yeah, it's a different type of love story. But that's also what Place Beyond the Pines is like. Before I even get into the crux of the movie, like how it's formatted and the cinematography, Sean Bobbitt is the director of photography. He's done some other films. I can't really name his work. I think he also did Foxcatcher.
I just saw that recently. It was good.
Brilliant film.
Yeah.
But it's the camera and the actors in this film, much like everything else in this film, it's almost like there isn't even a crew. It's like it's so well done that you think it's real life.
It's very similar to how most independent films are made. You know, you light for general coverage, which just means you light the scene so that if you move camera setups and you move from shot 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, you don't have to reset lights and you don't have to move lights around. You just light so that you can move quickly. I totally agree. It almost felt like an independent film for me, like an indie type, you know. But at the same time, I still got like this is a Hollywood movie. At the same time, I don't know if you got that as well.
I think it was independent the whole way through, and I think as far as 15 million goes, I think if it was a Hollywood movie, I don't think it would have been the same. I think as far as the director is saying in interviews, he gave them the first draft of the script, which is about 120 pages, 126 pages, I think. And producer said, too long, take 20 pages out of it. And he literally just shrank the font and made the margins shorter, and they didn't notice.
Wow.
And they said, okay, here you go. So they probably didn't reread it at that point, honestly.
I mean, most producers, they're doing like 15 things at once.
Exactly.
But that's amazing. Isn't
that crazy?
I love stories like that.
Exactly. That's like film school 101, like how to finesse.
And that's dedication, too. That's like if you love your story and you know it'll work, and it did, go for it.
And for the runtime, it's a little over 2 hours. I think it's 2 hours, 10 minutes maybe. It honestly feels like nothing was unnecessary in the film. I don't really think there's any drag that I was like, you should have took this out.
Right.
But as far as my experience, I had known a few things about the movie beforehand, and then I watched it because I heard about it before. I saw it maybe 4 years after it came out. I think I saw it 2017. And I didn't know Ray Liotta was in it. I think I missed his name in the opening credits. Mm-hmm. And I realized he was in the film when somebody in Bradley Cooper's wife, played by she literally opened the door and he's there.
And he's like, oh, it's really.
And I'm just like, what the hell? What's Henry Hill doing in this movie?
Yeah.
Now Ray Liotta kills it, plays. There's multiple protagonists, also multiple antagonists, which honestly is so hard to pull off and make it seem natural. Like, to me, if you really like put it on paper and say we're gonna have 3 different protagonists, it's gonna go from the main character, then the person who meets the main character's demise, and then it's the original main character's son, and then we're gonna tie in people from their past, people that they're gonna meet in the future, and we're gonna make it work in 2 hours and 10 minutes. I'd be like, you're crazy.
Yeah. I would even say that Ryan Gosling, who's introduced as the first main character, because I had it's so funny because when I watched the film and it said Ryan Gosling was the lead character, I was like, oh, he's the main character. And honestly, I love the description of this movie. If you look up on IMDb or Netflix or wherever, it says a man starts robbing banks to support for his family when a rookie cop gets involved. That's all it says. And I think that's perfect because I went in there with that expectation. I thought, okay, it's going to be like a crime drama. Yeah. It's just going to be like Ryan Gosling getting bigger and bigger, and similar to The Mule, where Bradley Cooper's a cop who's trying to catch him up. But then he shoots him in the head, and I literally was like, wait. I paused it. I was like, wait. What? I was like, that's the main character. And then I was like, is he dead or is he like not dead? And nope, he was dead. And I was like, what is going on? And then it just shifted so smoothly and so effortlessly into Bradley Cooper's story, into his life. You see his family, you see his house, you see his dad.
So
it's just so good.
The reason it worked, you don't really realize till the credits roll, because it's the story about a cop, a robber, a cop, and then the robber's son, and then also leads into the cop's son. And you realize that two people on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum, so like a criminal and a police officer, are exactly the same.
Right.
So they both love their sons, and everything they do that's bad is because of the love that they have. So it's like
that's two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. Like the hate that they release in this film that Avery Cross's character does and Ryan Gosling's character does is because of the love that they have. Ryan Gosling, Rob Banks, I forget I'm drawing a blank of what his name is, and I think
it's Luke.
Luke. Okay, Luke. Rob Banks, because he's trying to support his son, who he has, and Bradley Cooper's character is trying to also just support his own career and his son, and they end up both making mistakes that become fatal and then near fatal. And so I feel like this film, when the third act rolls around, and I was like, now where's it going? And you realize it's, okay, you got Luke's son and Avery's son, they're becoming friends, and you make that, there's a line in the film where Avery's son goes, "Where's your dad?" And he's like, "Oh, I think he died in some car crash."
Right. That clicked for me. Subtle. I was like, "No way."
That was the moment where the audience, if you've been paying attention, realizes, okay, the main character now is hanging out with Avery Cross's son, and one of their dads killed the other person's dad, and let's see how this unfolds. That's my segue point is that for good screenwriting, like you're saying, the writing in this film is not subpar. It's perfection, really.
Right.
And how you get that is by creating moments where I think I forgot what. Right, here we go. Characters know something that other characters don't, but the audience knows it. That's how you create a lot of
irony,
conflict.
right?
Exactly.
Right.
Perfect. So we know that somebody doesn't know, basically. That's what makes the film like, okay, now we're just waiting to see if he finds out.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did they throw in mystery and revenge in 2 scenes, the movie's motivations completely shift, and you see the full circle of Luke's character basically embodied by his son, played by Dane DeHaan. Avery's character is played by Amaury Cohen, who was in the movie Brooklyn. He's been in some other stuff, but he's a troublemaker.
Avery is
Avery's son.
That's I thought you said Avery. Sorry.
Yeah, Avery, that Bradley Cooper's son.
Right.
Yeah, he's played by Amaury Cohen. And so you see the two of them, and it's ironic that they become friends. Once Avery realizes that's who he is, that's when the movie takes off for me. And I think the last 25 minutes, I think everybody didn't know it was going to happen, but also kind of did.
Especially because not just that the protagonist shifts 3 times, I think the story shifts 3 times.
Also goes 15 years ahead, too, at one point.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, one of the things I wrote down in my notes is that, Bradley Cooper's character literally is he changes everything in the story.
Uh-huh.
He shoots Luke, that ends that storyline. He takes down the crooked cops, that changes that storyline. And then he has the whole, thing with Luke. Which, by the way, that forest scene is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. With the gun, he's like, "Where's my son?" He's like, "Is he okay?" And he's crying. And then Dane DeHaan just runs, and the music, and just, dude, that's a beautifully crafted scene.
Because he sees the picture in the wallet.
Right. And one thing I love too is, so the 2 moments for me when I realized this is completely different from what I expected. Something's because the first time was when Luke got shot, and I thought, "Whoa, what just happened?" And I looked at I moved my cursor so I could see how much movie was left, and it was like an hour and a half. And I was like, "How is there?
Yeah.
How?" Then the story kept going on. We met Bradley Cooper's wife. We met his little baby, his dad,
Ray
all that
Liotta.
stuff. Ray Liotta, and also that scene, a way to write and shoot tension. The scene where he says, "Hey, why don't you follow me?" When he talked to the captain.
Oh, yeah.
They're following each other in the cars into this dark forest, and then Ray Liotta gets out of the car. Bradley Cooper just puts in reverse and gets out of there.
Yeah.
Seriously, like a horror film. It was so well done. But what's amazing, too, is the whole thing with the crooked cops. He's talking to his dad, "What do I do?" And he says, "Well, you got to do it." And then they arrest the cops for being crooked. he gets a promotion, and I think that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Check the timeline. Still like 40 minutes left. I'm like, how? Like, what is gonna happen? Like,
what's left to tell?
I literally did not understand. And I thought, honestly, even if, from my perspective, if let's say we hadn't seen the original movie, if they had ended the movie there, I would have been like, yeah, that's still a good movie. Like, I would have liked it. But they added in so much more with the kids that really, like you said, made it a full circle. That just, for me, really, like, it's very rare that a film, for me, starts off, you know, as an unopened, as a unwrapped present and ends with a bow on it. Like, it's very rare that you get that full story that you're craving for. A lot of movies, they either end on unnecessary cliffhangers or, you know, whatever, or they start off in a weird place and it just doesn't feel, it feels like you could either do more in the beginning, more in the end, whatever. But this movie just felt so, I don't think it needed to be a page longer. I don't think it needed to be any minute or second longer. I think it was perfect.
Literally. I'd say the moment to me when I really started dissecting, because I've watched it probably like 10 times now, is you realize too that for like almost scene for scene, Bradley Cooper and Ryan Gosling's characters do the exact same things, and they're filmed differently, and they're also acted differently. So Ryan Gosling, he robs his first bank with the company of Ben Mendelsohn, who's like, Ben Mendelsohn, super underrated
He's a great
actor.
Yeah.
Like, silently, like, outshines everybody. He also returns in the third act, and he was just like, bro, like, you're really the core of this movie.
Right.
Like silently, almost. And so Ryan Gosling offers the money to Eva Mendes, says, you need it for the kid. She refuses him. That was filmed on a tripod, wide, kind of romantic angle. Bradley Cooper then tries to return it to him after Ray Liotta and Bradley Cooper have to take it from his house illegally, which you can't do. He tries to get back to her. It's handheld. It's like unstable footage, and she immediately says no, like, F you, get out of here.
Right. And
then they have other scenes. I don't want to say all the examples, but it's like they're the same person. They do the same stuff. It's filmed differently. I was like, that's genius. Secondly, I believe the scene to me that ties together the full circle is when Ray Liotta drags Avery out of his house to get him to take the money that Luke stole. Because that is a key moment, because not only just how it's filmed, if you notice the framing, Ray Liotta lets himself into the house. I forget what his character's name in the film. And they cut to an angle from behind all four officers, and they look huge. And Eva Mendes' character is surrounded in the frame. She's so powerless. Mahershala Ali also is just like, hey, like, I can't do anything here.
He's a great actor in this movie as well.
He's also
just in general.
performance.
You have to do Green Book. You have to see Green Book. That is an amazing. I mean, he obviously won an Oscar for it, but it's interesting too. You bring up that scene because right off the bat, like the minute we met Ray Liotta's character, I can't remember his name either, but the minute we met him and all of his friends, I just knew like something was up with these guys. Like they're very impolite. Very like when he was asking like, hey, should we steal your guy for tonight? It honestly,
they almost wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah, it didn't feel like they were asking. It felt like they were just saying, "Hey, we're taking him out." And then same thing with when they got in the house. He was also like slightly racist.
Like, can I get
as well.
some coffee?
Yeah, he was like,
while
hey,
I'm about to take your money.
He was like, "Hey, how about some coffee?" Huh? Or he said like
he said, "You assume I have a warrant. I'll assume your mother has papers." That's what that's what
he
got
said.
him into the house.
Right.
And I was like, "You sly dog! Like, are you serious?"
Yeah.
And then Bradley Cooper goes up to the crib with Scotty where Luke's son is, and then Scotty's like, I put my money where my heart is.
Right.
He's like, hold the baby. And so he's holding Luke. And in that moment, I'm like, this is a great like moment to highlight and be like, little do you know, you're holding a baby and you've killed their father. You know, whether it was on accident or it's very, very subjective as to if he meant to shoot him and whatnot, as it usually is. And you're holding it. It should be a nice moment, but you're like, you feel like shit or you feel like crap because it's like, I killed your dad now. Yeah. But like, and little does he know,
it's even worse.
You're gonna meet again.
Yeah. And he's like, gonna have the gun.
Yeah. That was the most beautiful moment because it's like, you know, it's like that Bob Dylan song, "The Times Are Changing." Mm-hmm. It's like the slow one now will later be fast. Like that karma that came back to him that nearly killed him and his family. It was like that's the moment you knew you screwed up. And I think that's when he was in the woods in the climax. That clicked so well for me because it's like he knew he screwed up. And then when Jason was like,
gonna get him.
Jason was like, I have enough reason to kill this guy. He's done a lot of corruption. And then he just sees that he cares. So he looks at the picture that was in Avery's wallet and he says, why does he have this? and then he realizes that he knows who he is. That was like, okay, I'm not going to pull the trigger just because not only do you know who I am, but you're just as hurt as me. So I think that's beautiful that that's where they ended. And I think it's sad that the last thing that Jason said to his mother was, "You're a liar."
Right.
Because she, think about her role in this movie, she not only did her husband get killed and her son eventually left her, the last thing that her father said, or her husband said to her was, "Don't tell my son about me." And then the last thing her son says to her is, "You're a liar."
Yeah, she's rough life, but I mean, she has Kofi, and she has her daughter as well. But still, yeah, you can't get over that. And one of this will be my last point. If you have any other last points, we'll wrap it up. I thought that the two kids, Jason and Jake, right? Jake was the I think Jason was Luke's son, and then Jake. I want to say Jake was Avery's son. Yeah, let's just say that is. The two actors, Dane DeHaan and who played the
Amori Cohen.
I thought that they actually held their own against the leads very well.
100%.
Bradley, you have Bradley Cooper, Ryan Gosling, and even like you said, Ben Mendelsohn. I think Ben Mendelsohn completely encapsulated what it means to be a supporting actor.
Yeah.
Because he supported the lead role so well and even did more than that, where I would argue that he's so close to being a lead character, but he does only show up for part of the first act and a scene in the third act, so you can't really.
Without him, the script doesn't work. He's almost like the herald if you think about it.
Yeah,
he's the one that gets Luke like, "Hey, we can rob banks."
Yeah.
And then that's why when Jason came back to see him and he's like, "I'll show you good things about your father," it was like, oh, I feel like he felt responsible. It's like, it's like one of those human moments. Was like, it was in agreement. It's like we both decided to rob banks. It's just a shame that I'm standing here and your dad's not.
Especially because and also another thing too with script is not just is it well written in the aspect of story and all that and pacing, but all the dialogue in every scene is so natural.
Yeah.
And so not like plastic.
Cinematic.
Yeah, like the scene where I think they're in the woods and he's like, "We can rob banks if you want." He's like, "Get out of here." He's like, "No, really, I'm serious." Like, or the scene where Kofi and Dane DeHaan and Jason are getting ice cream after the whole scene where he's like, "Where's my dad?" or "Who's my dad?" And then they're sitting there and he's like, "Come on, you're my dad. Like you're my son." He's like, "Haha, yeah, but you're not." Like
I'm
it
your
was just
father. Yeah.
He was like, "I'm your father." Like it's so well written and so natural and my three favorite scenes, and you might agree on this, is the ice cream scene. I think that's very well captured. The forest scene at the end, which is just it's a cinematic moment, but also just like, gut wrencher. And also the bike chase scene.
Yeah, those were filmed. Also, the stunt man who, I put this in my notes, stunt man that was driving the motorcycle most of the shots, also was the stunt man for Batman. And for the Dark Knight trilogy.
Wow.
So he's driving like the Batmobile,
the Bat
motorcycle.
Pod.
Yeah. So he said to the director, he said, "I was in 32 frames of that movie and like a total of like 3 seconds of screen time or something like that."
Wow.
And he goes, "I'm going to give you long shots." So that's why when he's like flying a motorcycle, you can see him for 30 seconds straight, like just ripping apart the road.
Especially when there's the two barriers and the cops like, "Come on, get out." And he's like, "Oh, he got around the barriers." And he's like,
or like when the car pulls out in the driveway and that's what ends up making him crash.
Right.
But I'd say my third favorite scene is when Jason realizes he's hooking up with a girl at a party and then he sees the picture of the guy who killed his father, and he's like popped. He popped like a Xan, or I think he had like Oxycontin and like whiskey. Like that, yeah. So he's like in the wrong state of mind, and I'm like, I felt empathetic. I'm like, if you were in that state and you realize that a friend of yours actually is the son of somebody who killed your father, and not knowing he knows that because AJ, his character's name is AJ.
AJ, that's it.
Not Jake.
Yeah. I don't know who Jake.
AJ, it was close. You got the letters mixed up. AJ, and then he goes, and then he gets his ass beat at the party.
Yeah.
I thought, oh my God, that's that moment, that hurrah moment where it's like, okay, you finally realize. Now I was like, destruction's gonna happen. So that's my favorite scene, just because it was like such a terrible environment for that to happen, and in life, sometimes you're not in the right place at the right time to find out certain things. And that was, to me, almost like, what's a natural moment to put this in? Like, to me, if I'd probably be like, oh, he'll find it out, like next to AJ or something like that,
right.
And then the fact that they wrote it that way, I was like, it seems so surreal and realistic and authentic. The last thing, my last point with this movie, since I know you want to wrap up, is that I think when the credits rolled, I literally just watched them roll. I never do that. I just thought about it. It gives you so much brain food that I literally just thought about it. My whole night was just kind of like, I'm just going to think about this movie for like 4 hours. You know,
Right.
I had plans. I went out, but I was mentally still on the screen, which is like
I know exactly
what
you mean.
movies do. Really good movies do. Same with American Sniper to tie in. That movie, leaving American Sniper in a theater was like leaving a funeral. Like you really think you were leaving somebody, that you lost somebody. But The Place Beyond the Pines. Think about the title. It means different things to everybody. That's the one thing that isn't the one ambiguous thing is the title. My dad thinks that The Place Beyond the Pines is where Bradley Cooper was taken. It's like when Bradley Cooper goes to the Pines, he's almost Ray Liotta tries to kill him. Jason tries to kill him. He leaves it both times. He's lucky and he's blessed to leave. I think at the end of the film, the last shot, I think that's where he's going. I think the Pines is where the crime and the corruption happens. I think Jason is on a motorcycle like his dad was, and he's going to where he's not going to be affected by that. That's just my take of it, and the fact that up until what the title is and what the first minute and the last minute entail, I think it is literally perfection, and treat yourself. I'd say I hope you watch the movie before you listen to the podcast, because we did
talk about
dissect it almost, fully. But if you haven't seen it yet and you listen, do yourself a favor. It's really a treat. It's like a hidden gem. I think it'll gain a lot of clout in the next coming years.
Right.
I hope in like 20, 30 years we look back and more people are like, this is a masterpiece, because awards didn't really see it. Not that it matters. I don't care if it won anything or didn't get nominated. This movie will always have a special place in my heart, and I think a lot of people that watch it, whether you despise it or you love it, you're going to be thinking about it. You're going to care about it.
Yeah. All right. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening. Today we talked about The Mule and The Place Beyond the Pines, 2 films we recommend you watch. Not as much The Mule, but we recommend you watch it. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to check in next week, same time, Thursday at 1 p.m. Our guest will be Zach Miller, and we're going to be talking about 2 films that I think are very, very, very well-made films, similar to Place Beyond the Pines. So I'm Michael D. Smith, and I'm here with Alec Palumbo, and thanks for listening to Take 2.